And now I am going to record. Welcome, welcome. How are you guys? It was so nice out today. Anybody in New Jersey? We could feel spring is coming. I was in the sun. I cleaned a chicken coop. I'm like, oh, please, it's coming. It's here. I know you California and Florida people, that doesn't mean as much to you, but to us here that it's been like in the teens for like 3 months. We are ready. All right. So, all right. I want to try and get a gauge for who's where in terms of the lessons. So if you got a chance to do this week's lesson, The Power of Intention, throw a 1 in the chat. Don't do that yet. If you got a chance to do the lesson and do the activity and start filling out the worksheet, throw a 2 in the chat. And if you haven't gotten to either one of them, throw a 3 in the chat, just so I know how deep to go. And then I have to remember what I asked you all to do. So 1.5. All right, good. We got good. Because we're going to do the other half of that 1.5 tonight. Heather 2, 1.5. Good. What do we got? I can't see 1.5. Oh, good. Great. We're at general 1.5. So the average is a 1.5. So that's good. So if you didn't get to it at all, totally fine. You're here. You can still get something out of this session tonight. We're going to build on some stuff and you can just kind of go along with it as we go. Goosey, we're not going out there. I'm going to have crying dogs. I may have to pause a couple of times tonight. Layla, can you put up the thing? Yeah. Okay. I'm watching 2 dogs and I have my 2 dogs. So it's one of those. All right. So the lesson basically taught us that intention. Let me let internet in. You know what? I'm going to share my screen too while I'm at it. Because now not only do I know how to use ChatGPT, but I've learned that ChatGPT can create images for me based on whatever I ask it to make. So now you're going to see all of these slideshows just kind of come alive with my AI imagery. When we get taken over by robots, you can definitely blame me as being part of the problem because I'm really using it. Okay. So from the lesson, hopefully you kind of got the impression that intention is like the tightrope that's between those 2 buildings of where you are and where you want to go. We talked the week before that about something called structural tension and how structural tension is how tight that tightrope is, right? But when we intend to do something, and it means that we're really determined and resolved to show up every single day in every choice we make in order to make that thing happen, to bring it to fruition. But I have another big secret, and that is we don't just have to do this with these big, audacious, worthy dreams that we have. We can actually do this in our everyday lives about all the things that we have going on. So while one good feeling thought can be a magnet for another good feeling thought, a whole good feeling day can be a magnet for another whole good feeling day. A whole good feeling week can be a magnet for another whole good feeling week. And that's how the momentum builds. And we end up with years of our lives that feel good. And that's what we're working on. That kind of momentum makes it so that your dream life is not just a possibility, it's inevitable. It's an inevitability. I practiced that word like 4 times before I came on tonight, and I knew I was going to stumble. So with that being said, does anybody want to share any kind of shift that you had while listening to that last lesson or doing the exercise about intention? Something you learned, a shift that you were able to make, an understanding you gained. Yep, Lisa, you came off, and then we got T.
I like time. So I like the whole 17-second rule, because when you attach a time to it, you can do anything, especially for like 17 seconds.
So true. Like, what can't we do for 17 seconds?
Yeah.
And to create that snowball avalanche, like it's 85 seconds to go full blown, like launching rockets with as much rocket fuel as we need. It's 85 seconds. But when you try and do it, 85 seconds is a long time. If I don't know if any of you practice it without any interrupting thought about why you might not be able to, right? 85 seconds is a long time, but 17 we can do. And then we can build on that 17 and 17 and 17. So I love that. I love that you picked that up. I remember learning about that the first time, like, right, 17 seconds. It kind of goes the same way the other way, right? So you know how some of you, when we have our one-on-ones, you're like, I just needed to have my temper tantrum, and then I get to move on, right? Like I would imagine every one of the 9 of you on here has said that to me at some point. The 17 seconds is your temper tantrum. If you can get it out in 17 seconds, you don't create the momentum to keep going. Get it out in 16 seconds flat, and then move on. Decide to move back up the ladder. Make sense? It's the same kind of distance. All right, D, you're next.
So I was going to say the same thing about 17 seconds. Like, who doesn't have 17 seconds? So I filled out the homework, that whole form thing, and I'm like, I think I can read this every day. I think I can do this. I think I could push it to 85 seconds. Like if I set a timer. Like, is that all really?
That's really it. That is the power of intention. We're going to do something together. Maybe it'll be, I don't know exactly when I'm going to put it in, but we're going to create something called the statement. And the statement is going to take all of the stuff that we're doing now in these couple of weeks, plus all of the stuff we're doing when we create the action steps that we're going to create in the next couple of weeks. And it's going to put it into like 1 or 2 paragraphs in a beautiful format that makes you feel good. And you're going to have the homework of intentionally reading that either out loud or recording yourself and listening to you reading that 3 times a day. And there is scientific evidence that if you do that 3 times a day, it's almost impossible for you to not make that life come true. So we're going to take this power of that 17 seconds and really be using it. So I'm glad it made an impact on you guys. Anybody else want to share a shift or something that was big? Mary Margaret?
I just kind of like the idea of being more specific and like saying what it looks like and what it feels like, because I think when we haven't been there, it's hard to imagine what it would look like and feel like. And we just see the end result or what we imagine what we would want, but we don't necessarily imagine the whole picture. And it was kind of cool to like illustrate that for yourself.
And that is, it's really so important. And, you know, a lot of you that know me personally, you know, I have a strong foundation in religion, right? In the Bible. So, over the past 10 years, I really started digging deep first into the Old Testament of the Bible, which is what the whole Jewish faith is based on, and then into the New Testament of the Bible, which is what the whole Christian faith is based on. And one of the most amazing things that correlates to what you were saying, Mary Margaret, is the Jews were waiting for a savior in Jesus. And when they imagined what that savior would be, they were waiting for a warrior. They were waiting for a king. They were waiting for someone that was going to fight on their behalf and release them from all of the tyranny that they were under. And when Jesus came, he came as this soft-spoken carpenter, preaching peace and love and like a hippie. And half of them could not fathom that he could possibly be what they were told was coming to save them. But those that saw him as the savior could see that we ask for things in how we can imagine those things fulfilling the feelings and the end result that we're looking for. But the universe and God delivers things to us in ways that might not match what even our brains can perceive, but will fulfill the feelings or the senses that we use to paint that same picture. Does that make sense to you guys? Mm-hmm. So we could be asking for beach house, which I'm going to show you my example later, and you end up with a rental unit for a week. And you're like, well, this isn't what I asked for. That wasn't my worthy dream. But if the rental unit for the week at the beach fulfilled every desire you actually had about the beach house, but the beach house piece of it was just you don't know any other way than being able to create something like that than to own your own beach house, then you might not be able to see that it already came. And now we have to dream bigger. So now if there's a reason why you want to do that multiple times, now you got to make that into a dream. I now had such an amazing experience that I want to be able to do this again and again and again. Now you have reason to have a beach house because it makes the most affordable solution to the problem, right? So it's really important that we paint this picture as deeply as we did, because we might not get exactly that thing, but the more specific we are, the more we can figure out why we want it exactly that way. Make sense? Awesome. Anybody else? One more person want to share anything from this last session that you got? I'm trying to see if I could see everybody. I don't know if I could see everybody at one time. Just come off mute if you're doing it. All right. I won't call on anybody because we got plenty of times where you're all going to have to share tonight. All right. So where we're going today is we're actually going to get even more clear on all of this. And we're going to do a couple of fun activities together. So the first activity we are going to do, so this was the worksheet that you guys had. So hopefully most of you were able to identify the worthy dreams. We're at least that far. Raise your hand if you're at least identified 3 to 5 worthy dreams that we're going to be working on for the next couple weeks together. Good. Most of us have 3 to 5 worthy dreams. Kind of, sort of. All right. We'll play on it. Then we're going to get clear on that. If you haven't done that yet, it's okay, because this next section is going to help you do that. Feel the feels. That's just about you really writing down like what it really feels like, what it looks like. And then what's your why is really going that 7 levels deep to try and get to an emotional space. I get to an emotional space at level 5. So if you're not going 7 down, totally fine. You want to get to a place where you can actually feel the reasons why. Tonight, if you have your worksheet, grab it. My worksheet doesn't look like this worksheet. I actually scribbled on the back of the paper because I'm doing this stuff right alongside you guys. Oh, you know what? Let me text Marlo. Wonder if she remembers. Hold on. Marlo. But I actually did it with her. So this is mine. So this is what my sheet looks like. There's not much written on it because then I realized I needed way more paper. So this is what my sheet actually looks like. I just did 3 dreams and I went down and I really defined it. And then I got my why. And then the next step is really the values. So raise your hand if you got to values, because that's what we're going to dig into tonight. Okay. So we're going to get really, really deep in values. I know I said, try to connect some core values to it. And in doing the exercise, I kind of realized that not only do our wedges of our wheel all have different kind of values assigned to them, but our worthy dreams are all going to have different values assigned to them. So your core values might not be the values that you're finding coming into play in each of these worthy dreams. So because of this exercise, I have 3 different lists of values that I've used throughout all my different workshops. So I ended up putting everything on one, and now I have a master list of about 140 values. So what I want you to do is I want you to take out your list and look at your 3 to 5 worthy dreams. And I want you to look at this list of values that I'm going to pull up next. And I'm going to try and make this bigger for you guys. I don't know if you can make it bigger on your end. Is that getting bigger? No.
Well, Jackie, we see everything. We see all the slides and that. So if there's a way for you to just open the one slide without having the whole thing open, that would make it look bigger. I don't know if it does that or not.
This one doesn't, but I have it on a picture. So I'm going to open it on the picture for you guys, and I'm just going to share that. So thank you. Still getting good at this. And I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to share again. And this should be big. Do you see it big now? Is it bigger? Yeah? Okay. So let me move this over here. Now you're not seeing that. You see that? Do you see it? Go. Technical difficulties. Good. Okay. See if I can move it. Tell me if you still see it. Still see it? Just that? Where? What is happening? I don't even know where it went. This is hilarious. Hold on. Let me do it again. We're trying one more time. And then I'm calling it quits and I'm putting up the slide and you'll all have to put on your readers that I know you have. Well, let me open it again. Yes. I'm moving it over. Pray for me. Come on. Yes. Okay, leaving it alone. Okay, so for each of your worthy dreams, I want you to look through this list and I want you to write down every single word that pops out at you when you think of that worthy dream. So for example, right, I'm going to talk about my worthy dream of I want a beach house, right? So I got crystal clear. I want a beach house. It has 3 to 4 bedrooms. It's near a bay. I want to be able to kayak and paddleboard, but I also want to be close enough where I could ride my bike and get to the actual beach. I want it because my why is to be able to gather as a family, to be in connection with nature, to move my body in a way that brings me peace and exercise at the same time. And I just want to feel proud. It would make me feel super, super proud. So when I look at the values that it embodies, I'm going down the list, every column, and I'm going alphabetical order. It hits adventure. It hits appreciation, right? I appreciate so much that I'm able to do this. It creates community. That jumps out at me. Creativity, because I pick up sea glass and I pick up shells and I actually make things with it. It gives me dependability. It gives me faith. It gives me love. It gives me mindfulness. I can run through the entire list and I'm looking at every word and I'm like, yes, it does that. And I'm writing it down. And that's how you're going to get super crystal clear on aligning the values that match each of your worthy dreams. So if you don't have a worthy dream yet, you haven't done that part yet, I want you to think about the last wedge of your wheel that at your last wheel of life assessment that you did. And I want you to think about the things that popped out at you that you still really want to work on. And I want you to just jot down like 3 sentences about things that you really still are looking to create in your life. Those are what you're going to use when you look through this list. So if you already have your worthy dream set, fantastic. If you haven't gotten that far, you're going to kind of make them up now. 3 things that we really still want in your life. And then you're going to look at this list and you're going to write down everything that aligns with each of those 3 things. And then I'm going to ask that when you're done with doing 3, just throw in the chat a 1, just to tell me that you're done so that I can align how much time we have. All right, we're gonna do just about one more minute and then wherever we're at, we will close it up. Right. All right, ladies. Stop my share. So, who had an insight about how your values can help shape your dreams? What do we get? Let's go around. This is actually a good one to go around. We'll go around top down. However, I see you on my board, I'll call you out. Tell me something that you learned by doing this, something that surprised you, maybe, or something that you knew, or how this reinforced something for you with the power of intention. So, Heather, I'm going to start with you. You're in my upper left. Your pretty red lip.
So I would say being more intentional, thinking about, so one of my goals, I guess, is with a career, and what changed and kind of what my aha moment was, is that I wasn't very clear as to my intentions. And I think it was just because it also goes back to what my values are, right? And I kept saying, I think I've said here before as well, that I value being honest and being, authentic, transparent, but I don't think I was giving that out. And I mean, that's really what my aha was today when I listened to this lesson again, is that I was just kind of like, oh, I need a new job, blah, blah, blah. And I think I've been looked at as being a certain type of person that should have a certain type of career, and you just move up the ladder and you're doing all that, and then what's the next logical step? Well, okay, then you take over and you do this. And I'm starting to think, I don't know that I'd be that good at it, and I don't know that I actually even wanted it, and maybe that's why I'm in the predicament I'm in at the moment. But actually, I mean, I feel really good about it now, because I was like, I don't have to do that, right? And I was kind of putting on this facade like, okay, yeah, this is, I wanted it at one point when I was younger. I wanted to make sure I had a really good job. I wanted to be independent. I want to be the one calling the shots with money, and that's just, from things in my childhood. But I can do that and also not be trying to be a top dog, where that's not really my personality, and it's not ultimately what is good for my family. It's not. And when I was kind of in that position where it looked like I was going to get there, I didn't feel like, it was kind of like, yeah, okay, great, I'll do that. Sure. Yeah, I want the job. But I don't think I really did. I really don't think I did. And when I was just sitting there for a while, like looking for a new job, I'm just like, please, I need a new job. What does that mean? I talked to a lot of people, but I wasn't very clear about it. And I think I am clear about it now. I can still make a good living, and I can be a lot more calm and be more present at home, even though my kids are older. It's not exactly, I'm probably a little late to the game on this, but nonetheless, I think it was an aha for me. And that feeds into all my values that like I said, I thought they were important to me, but I wasn't really emulating them as well.
right? Like we don't even realize that we're not living them. We have them. For some of us, we don't even know what they are to begin with. We think we have an idea, and then we start to really drill it down. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head with, I've been looked at as a certain type of person that should be doing this next.
Right.
And you know, you and I worked together, and I don't know if you remember, but I had a manager, and when I decided to go and stay home with my kids, his words to me were, you're going to take your talent and waste it being a stay-at-home mom. And I remember saying to him, you know, I don't see any better place for my talent right now, but I admire that you see it in me. Right. Like,
Yeah.
but I then in that moment, I knew where my values lied, but I didn't think I could have it both ways. Right. And so for me, I grew up thinking it was one or the other. And doing this kind of thing, you start to realize, no, there's a way. I just have to dream it. If I can dream it, I can have it. That's what Walt Disney said, right? So we're all here all these decades later, drinking his Kool-Aid. But the truth is, if you know, our imagination is there for a reason, and it's there because it's being guided by our inner self, our guiding source, and it's leading us to where we want to be. And how funny, not funny, would it be if you were protected? You know, I always say God, the universe, whatever higher power you believe in, is protecting, correcting, or directing. One of those three things. When things happen in our lives, it's protection, correction, or direction, right? So we're correcting our course, we're being directed on the course, or we're being protected from something. And how much sense would it make if you were being directed or protected or corrected in whatever course you were on, because the path of least resistance and greatest joy was to start a new career, was to start at a new place. Right. And we
Yeah,
see
like
things.
I'm not going to change everything, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I thought about that as well, because but for what happened with my last position, I would never have been in this group, and I would never be doing this work. I mean, I probably not. Like that's me being here was a direct result of how I felt initially when that all happened, because it just shattered like what my thoughts were of myself. But like when I listened to this again, I was listening to it in the car actually, and I was driving and I was like, who said I need to be like, you know, I don't know. But in my head, I was thinking like, okay, you know, people say, well, you went to school all this time, you're successful, you know, you should be doing the next thing. And then I was having an internal dialogue and then talking to myself thinking, okay, if Jackie could see me right now.
Should be like, wait, you have a protector talking? And sometimes we're like, who said? Well, it was me. Well, was it you? Or was it someone on your bus that took the wheel? And you didn't even realize that they were behind the wheel, right? Was it a protector that said, we're never having financial problems because we had them when we were growing up? Was it a manager that says, you know, you need to be perfect. You need to follow suit. This is what happens. We need to protect that little girl from being vulnerable. We don't know who said so. But when you can get clear, you can figure out it wasn't wise mind. Wise mind is like, hey, there might be a different way. Let's go look at it.
I still have to get on the bus. I have issues with my bus, but I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna keep trying.
Your bus is pulled over. Did I send you the path meditation?
Yes, I haven't done it yet.
Okay, you will. You'll get on the bus once that comes. All right, Lisa, we're up to you. What's an insight you just got or got from the lesson?
Well, I didn't realize, you know, like Heather, I'm searching for, you know, a new career. And I just didn't realize how many values came along or that I attached to that. You know, you think, you know, career and the obvious, but I mean, there's like a whole list. If the box was any bigger, there's probably like, you know, 15, 20 values that I could, you know, plug into that why. So that kind of surprised me.
And when you started listing them, could you feel why?
Oh yeah. And then it was like, oh, well, if I list this one, well then, oh, then this one has to be there too. So.
And can you see how now having that list of values, when you're making a decision, right? Or when you're pursuing what's next can come into play, because now you're like, it isn't selfish to think that I want this. It's actually aligned with this. Like, it's almost like we have that testimonial inside of us that's like, no, it isn't. Like, we have proof. We could just keep showing up with proof. No, this is what that's about. No, this is why I want that. Like, no, it's not just for this, it's for this. And that leads to this, and that leads to this, right? Like, I could list a million values for why I want this beach house. When on the surface, when I first did this exercise, when I was in my personal development group, and I started thinking about real reasons why and the worthy dreams. I actually said, I raised my hand and I said, I have a dream, but it's not worthy. And they walked me through how my beach house was a worthy dream, because they were able to tie it to, does it give you adventure? Does it give you community? Does it give you creativity? Does it bring you faith? Does it bring you love? Does it bring you mindfulness? Does it bring anybody else any of those things? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it is a worthy dream, right?
Well,
To me, it just, go
it
ahead.
also pointed out for me, because I have a limiting belief. Valentine's Day literally marked 14 years that I'm in my current position, a position that I took very temporarily 14 years ago, and I've been able to see all the good that has come out and how my life has transformed over the last 14 years, obviously with the addition of Madeline, and how that has worked for me, because I wanted to go into nursing school and then COVID happened and you couldn't pay me to be a nurse. Like it's just, all the whys are clear. And now I've got a new path and a new perspective towards bigger and better.
All the protections, the corrections, and the directions that we don't intend. You were going to be a nurse.
Yeah.
Like, everything was aligned for that to bring you what you thought you wanted. And the universe said, path of least resistance and greatest joy. It's this way. Right. And it feels like, oh, I'm stuck in this position for 14 years. But the truth is, you were not stuck.
Yeah.
You were being given gifts and visions and all the contrast to bring you clarity on what you actually really wanted.
Yeah. And now I'm done with it. It's time to move on.
And now it's time to move on. Now you're ready to leap, right? Now
Yeah.
I'm ready to leap. I'm clear and I'm ready to leap. And this is going to paint the picture for where you're going. Awesome. Antoinette, do you have anything that came up for you?
I didn't do the lesson, so
Yep.
I'm not sure if I did this right. I didn't watch the YouTube.
You can never get it wrong.
But what jumped out to me is bravery, because I have all these dreams, but they're dreams. And I think I just need to be brave and bite the bullet and start, working towards them, and stop being afraid and using everything as an excuse for why I'm not doing what I want to do.
Yeah. And when you get to the exercise, and even we can do it one-on-one together, we can really go through the wheel and we can pull out exactly the things we want to create, right? And you and I have gotten pretty clear on what they look like. And you've already brought a lot of things to life just in the 2-3 months we've been working together. So now it's just about the bigger dreams, right? Like, we took care of the surface things. We're no longer feeling below the line. All of us here, right? Like, raise your hand if you wake up and you feel much better than you felt 3 months ago, just waking up in the morning, right? Every single
Absolutely.
one of us, right? That's the surface stuff. That was the stuff that was magnetized and pulling in more stuff that met those emotions. Now we're working on the big things, right? And we're going to work on taking those and building them into these tiny steps and sending our energy into the tiny steps so that it builds that kind of momentum. And 100% bravery. Every single one of the things that you want to create is going to take some courage, right? And the more we can align the actual values and the why of why we want them, the easier it's going to be to have the courage. Because when you start to think about what life looks like if we don't do them, Tony Robbins actually has this whole experience where not only are you doing the positive work, but one of the most impactful experiences that I won't even pretend to try and do with you guys is when he takes you on this visualization meditation of almost like Scrooged, almost like, you know, when you see your life, if you don't change, and you really see it and the agonizing pain, and he has you imagine it, feelings, everything, the agonizing pain of what your life looks like in 20, 30 years if you don't become the version of you that is in your heart. And that is hell of a motivation to get moving. But it all takes bravery, right? But once you understand what the other side is, the pain of the future becomes much worse than the pain of your present, and you're willing to walk through a lot of it. We're gonna build on that. I won't go deep into that, but go to UPW if you want to go and have that experience. All right, Mary Margaret, I'm on you.
I thought it was interesting because one of the things I put was talking about being thinner, and then I put I wanted to buy a house, and that some of the values coincided because I don't really think of them as related, but like perseverance and discipline and like a lot of different things aligned. And I was like, that's interesting. I didn't really think of it that way. But it's funny then as I was rereading it, I'm like, well, yes, it does, because I used to say that when I was a coach. I'd say like, okay, what have you accomplished in your lives? You know, not weight related, but and they'd be like, I bought a house, I graduated from college. And I'm like, well, think of all the things that you did to get there. And how can you apply that to what you're doing right now? And I'm like, oh, I guess it does kind of, I guess I did kind of know that. But when it's on the other end, it's different. Like when it's me, I just didn't really think of it that way. So that was interesting.
That isn't very interesting, right? You start to see, and then those values start showing up in multiple worthy dreams. You know that they have a really high place in the core value section too. So if they aren't in your core values, you might want to circle the ones that keep coming up because they mean a lot to you in multiple different places, right? You know, when I think about my worthy dreams, most of them are not having my core values. Most of them are these bigger values, probably the 30 that I circled the first time that I did the exercise, right? I live my life on a daily basis with the core values in mind, but these big dreams, a lot of them, I had a lot of similarities too. Tradition, community, a lot of that was in there.
Well, I thought it was funny that I was like, travel, I'm looking through it, and then I'm like, diversity was one of my values. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe that's why I like travel so much, because I really like learning about how other people live. I feel like it teaches you what you love about your life and what to be grateful for. And when you see how other people live and they have things that you want that you don't have, it makes you reevaluate your priorities. And I feel like travel is like one of the only ways that I really fully get that, because I'm out of my comfort in my everyday and I get to see like how other people live. And I don't know, I didn't think of that either. I'm like, oh, I guess that does make sense. Yeah.
It really does. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Awesome. D, what do you got for us?
So, like Mary Margaret just said, I have 4 worthy dreams, and a lot of them had the same core values, probably 20, 30. I wrote down each. So I'm going to talk about my health. It's not my favorite topic, but it is a worthy dream of mine. And I wrote down grace, which is something that never, so I have like, what do you call it? Consistency, determination, discipline. That's all like basic weight loss stuff or health stuff, right? But grace has never crossed my mind. So I was like, yeah, I definitely need to give myself grace. So that was definitely an aha.
And did it show up in multiple dreams, Grace?
Grace did not. No, it was the only one.
Okay. Okay. Look at that.
Yeah.
How
I know.
interesting that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I just need a little grace, D. That's what the little exile's saying. I just need a little grace, D.
Yeah.
Right? And when we don't have grace, we have resistance. And when we have resistance, we're not a magnet for what we want.
Exactly. And that's
Right? What is grace? Grace is ease. It's ease.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we're looking for. We're looking to build the momentum and the magnetism of the feelings and the values that we want. So please bring me more things in my health wedge that are graceful. that have ease, right? You're launching the rockets. Awesome.
I mean, you're kind of already doing it being here. I think like weight is so focused on, I mean, health is so focused on weight and things like that, but like this is your mental health. And I feel like mental health, I think that's why I'm so focused on this because I've already focused on the weight and it's like it comes and it goes and it's frustrating. I'm like, so let's focus on everything else because weight and health, it's like a symptom sometimes of not managing your mental health.
100%. Great point.
And Mary Margaret, just in case you didn't know, was a former Weight Watcher coach, team leader. What do you call him? Meeting leader. So she's got all the lingo. She got all the grace. You guys can have a side connection. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And you know, as you get older too, the cortisol levels, we know all about it. It's all interconnected. The mind, body, soul, it's all interconnected. And you know, it's years of not grace, right? So we have to remember that too. So we're untangling all the layers, one at a time. All right, who do we have next? Jamie, you're up on my screen.
Okay, so I focused on what we talked about during my one-on-one, which was my relationship with my middle son. And the other thing was my health. So, which I think is connected, which was my aha. And I think we talked about that also in my one-on-one, how much that my relationship with him is affecting my health. So I think that was definitely my aha moment of like,
Yep.
wow, so many of these things are related because it's so that relationship is so important to me with him. So yeah. And my core values, the list is extremely long.
Good.
Extremely long because not only there's a lot of things on both sides that there's, acceptance, appreciation, forgiveness, tolerance. I don't think that there is on his side, and probably on mine. So there was a lot of things that just definitely.
What a lens to look at the whole entire scenario through is
Mhm.
through that list of values.
Mhm.
Like go through that scenario and say, where is tolerance on both sides?
Right.
Right? Where is appreciation on both sides? Whatever words you showed, Byron Katie talks about the work. She has a book and she talks about the work, and it's where the feel good formula is kind of lightly based off of the premise of this work, where you look at it and you basically are like, well, who said so? Like, why do I think this? But she has a piece in there that I don't use, which is when you experience something. Teresa and I spoke about this deeply in our one-on-one this week. When you experience something, and someone is saying that you are something, take a look at it and see if they are that thing that they're saying you are.
Mhm.
And it will give you clarity on where their actions are coming from, right?
So
If they
I'm gonna tell my
perceive
son he's an overbearing Jewish mother. No,
right, that's what you tell him. That's what you tell him. No, but even if you go to tolerance, right? Like you want me to be tolerant, but are you tolerant?
Exactly.
Right? Like all the things that you think I am, flip
Mhm.
it and see. And not for them, not to say like, go look at yourself. Like,
Right.
no, we want to look at how they're seeing it from their perception and saying, this is how they really perceive themselves. This is a thorn of theirs.
Right.
If they're not being tolerant, they're afraid that people aren't being tolerant of them. If
Mhm.
they're not being grateful, they're afraid that they're going to come off as ungrateful, right? Like it shows you other people's thorns.
Mhm.
So I think it's amazing that you were able to use this exercise to flip it on both sides and not just look at it as for what your dreams are. Very interesting, because your dream is directly affected to another person, to
Yeah.
a relationship,
Mhm.
and you only have control of your one side of it. That's awesome, Jamie. I'm glad I put you on the spot.
Thanks.
Marlo, were you able to come to anything? this was the exercise that I came to when we were doing our work together. Marlo and I did this together. And I'm like, I have the perfect exercise.
So I know I text you because I was bad and late to the game. And you said to match, we were supposed to match the worthy dream and go through the list and write down the value that matched the dream.
Yep.
But so I didn't have time to do that. I didn't realize what I was supposed to be doing. But what I will say is my core values and my worthy dreams are definitely, I just looked at that through that lens. And that's interesting because we only did, I hate to say only because it was quite an afternoon, but we did 4 wedges, and the wedges that we did, finance, career, health, right? Finance, career, health, and relationship. And if I look at my 3 core, integrity, loyalty, and authenticity, it was super interesting how each one of them,
Unfolds.
Yeah, is connected. It was a day. I mean, it was very emotional, and now I'm looking at the notes again. So I am, there's a lot of information. I've done 7 layers deep a ton of times, but never in an honest way, not in the way that we did the other day. Because in doing it in real time, and especially with someone that you're willing to,
get to the core with, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, and for me, I have to be grateful that you and I have that, because I'm not someone, she likes to say my personality profile doesn't indicate that I would be very willing to let the vulnerability.
Marla's a hard D. She's a hard D. Doesn't really let anybody in, unless it's her turns. Then she'll let you in. She'll let you in. But it's hard to go out of the way that you want to do things, that you have always done things. But what is the definition of insanity is continuing to do things the way you've always done things and expecting a different result, right? And so as a D, it's very hard to merge into a new way of doing things that isn't necessarily your idea and that feels very uncomfortable to you.
But it's really interesting because the way you just said that, the D, you almost wonder nature nurture, right? Why did the D personality show up? So now that you're saying this in this way, I'm thinking to myself, there was a armor to be worn, and I happily put it on when it was needed. And that's where, whether the D was always going to be part of who I am, and I'm sure that it was, but it became the prevalent personality for good reason. And so in having to do this work with my girl the other day, it's a conscious choice, and she's right. It's a conscious choice to know that what's served me so far may not serve me any longer, and I have to go forward a little bit differently if I choose to make these adjustments and changes that are needed. And so, and if I'm going to sit and talk about how those values apply to that, then if I'm going to have integrity, then I have to show up differently. I have to, before when you guys were talking, I put in the chat, why his name's not going to come to me. Tony Robbins' mentor, can't think of his name right now.
Jim Rohn.
And I put in discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons, because to me, that's, at this point, I have to have the discipline of taking on the piece of the personality that I was never comfortable with. And that's certainly the vulnerability, and the authenticity for me is big. So then I have to be true to self, right? So that's kind of what I saw in all of these wedges that we pulled the other day. It's going to be something to the loyalty is to me, right? This time has to be well placed. And this time I think it has to be to me and what I want and what I get in a hot flash. So it must be true.
And it goes against your loyalty to others if we see the things we need to do as selfish. And if we are a loyal person and we need to choose us over someone else, loyalty comes to a head, right? Like, who am I more loyal to?
and all of those voices that told you who you were, right? And knowing full well you were quite very much something else at your core, at your heart, right? But there are a lot of voices that get a chance to speak into you in a way that, especially when you're young, right? A lot of that starts when we're young and we take on these stories that we tell ourselves and these beliefs that we have that really aren't the truth. Because what I know is, and I don't know if you guys do what I know is here.
We do.
Yeah. But what I know is that to be you're 100% right. Abraham Hicks talks about it all the time. Is it selfish? Is it, that she teaches to be selfish? Is it selfish that you put self first? Am I supposed to put you first?
Right. Who's more selfish? You asking me to put you first, or me telling you that I'm going to put me first?
I mean, and it's really, when you think about it, right? How many of us, and I have a pizza bagel, so I have all the Italian Jewish guilt any one girl could possibly, handle or ask for. And, martyring yourself to the cause is no longer, it wasn't even good then, let alone now, right? So, yeah, I think that never rang so true, Abraham's words, as far as, it's time. It's time that these things have to be first. That if I'm going to stand and be standing in integrity and be in my authenticity, and then it has to be the case. So yeah, it was interesting. This whole thing is very interesting.
So glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
All right, Teresa, you're up. What did we get? What kind of values did we match up with? What kind of dreams?
So it's funny because one word came up for all of them. It was freedom, which I thought was kind of funny. I'm like, I guess I feel stuck or trapped. And I really have to get working on these worthy dreams, because I guess I need to feel free.
You're longing for freedom, right? It's amazing what comes out, and we are going to get working on them, right? So that's really what's coming. The next thing we do is we're really going to look into what our natural born gifts are and how these dreams can really be aligned to our purpose, right? Like, so many women say, I have no idea what my purpose is, right? Like, your career is not your purpose. Your purpose is what you truly feel called to be doing with this one life that we get to live, with this one body that we get to have. It's your purpose is why we're here, right? And our gifts that we're all given are here to help us get to that purpose, right? So the freedom you're looking for is to move more towards that, to being able to use what naturally comes to you for the betterment of you and the entire world. And it sounds like such a big thing to be taking on, but it really isn't. Your purpose doesn't have to be this big thing. It could be these little small things that all add up to be who you really are and why we're here. So I think it's very interesting that freedom kept coming up. I don't know that I would have pegged that based on the conversations that we've had, because you're an entrepreneur and you've been creating a roadmap to a life that you want. But I think it's more about the freedom from the feelings and the freedom from all of the emotions that are connected to the reasons behind all of that. And I can't wait to see how that all untangles. Awesome. All right. So I have one more thing. If you guys all have like 15 more minutes, I just want to show you guys how we just basically did this on a large level for our dreams, right? Like, and I told you, this isn't just about the larger things. It's about even the smaller things. So I want you to think about, we're going to use a train analogy. I'm doing rockets. I'm doing buses. I'm doing all sorts of transportation. We're going to trains right now. Okay. So imagine getting on a train as soon as you're conscious that you actually have a choice on which train to get on. right? So imagine your whole life, you've just been on and off all these trains, never realizing you had a choice. You're just following the lead of all the things. And, oh, this train comes and it's the train that I get on every day. And I go to work and it's the train that I get on and I go be a mom. It's the train that I get on. And this is how I'm a daughter. And it's the train I get on, all the things, right? But now you specifically can choose which train you're getting on. So when you wake up every day, you're stepping onto a moving train of energy, right? So if you step onto the train of stress and frustration and overwhelm, it's really easy to just keep riding that train to all the different stops and bouncing around to similar trains, especially if that train feels like the emotional home that we learned about when we first started doing this work together, right? So if your emotional home was full of that stress and frustration and overwhelm and disappointment, and that's how your normal days were, then that's how your trains all were. So you got on one train and connected to another train. It was all kind of the same. It feels pretty familiar to you, right? And you might not have ever recognized the need to get off the train or that you had the ability to get off the train. But if you set an intention that you will actively be always looking to step on a train that feels more peaceful and more focused and has more gratitude and gives you more confidence, then that's the energy that's going to keep building around your entire day. Right? So the best part is you don't have to wait for the perfect morning to step onto that train. There are different segments within our day where you can choose at any different shift of a segment to change the feeling of the train that you're getting on. And that's exactly kind of what we're going to do now. So we have a chance to get on and off these trains and these segments. Let me share my screen. Where's my slide? Okay. Wish me luck. Okay. So I kind of put the segments up here. I'm going to move this over here. So segments are these natural transitions that we have in our day when we move from one part of our life to the next part. So I told you in the beginning when we started talking about intentions, like I would go to yoga. The first time I ever heard set an intention was when I would go to yoga. And the yoga instructor at the beginning of every class would be like, let's set our intention for the class. And I really had no idea like what it was. I was kind of like making a wish. Like I would be like, I wish that I'm 143 pounds. Like seriously, that was my intention at my yoga class, right? And I would make these birthday wishes, and I had this realization that an intention is a deep feeling decision on something we want in our life, right? So I actually started changing my birthday wishes. I don't just make a wish. I set a birthday intention. My intention for this coming year is to X, Y, and Z, right? Like when the new year comes, you guys see those things that pop up and it's like the first 3 words you see are what your year is going to be like, right? Like those are the intentions. Think of a word that's going to define your year or whatever it is, right? These are intentions. So we get to actively set an intention for all these different segments of our lives. And there are these natural transitions throughout our day, like between work or personal time or interacting with other people or taking time for yourself. The segments are like built-in reset buttons because it's literally a transition time. So you could have been having a really, really shitty day at work, but now you're coming home and you have a choice to get on a different feeling train when you get home. Right? My intention when I get home is going to be X, Y, and Z. So that's kind of, I want to do this for a couple of minutes here together. And I want to show you guys how this is done. And then I want to challenge you when this is over, when we leave here tonight, to really for the next 3 days, try and set 3 segment intentions in your days. Okay. So these are examples of natural segments. I don't know if you can see them. I did them here, but I'll try and highlight them. So waking up, that's the best one, right? We wake up in the morning and we set an intention. And the intention is, and you ask yourself 2 questions. How do I want to feel in this segment? And what kind of experience do I want to have? Right? So that's over on the right hand of the slide if you want to write that down. And I'll put this slide in our group too, so you guys have it, because this isn't in our workbooks, right? So then after you wake up, now you have a morning routine. So our morning routine, sometimes it's frustrating, overwhelming, especially if we have little kids, right? Or we have animals that have to be fed or taken out before work starts, right? There could be chaos in the morning so our morning routine, we have to set an intention for what we want that. Then a lot of us will have like an exercise routine in the morning, or if you have it at night, right? That's another segment. Transitioning into work or housework or your hobby mid-morning, right? Before important meetings at work, before you enter work. Your meal times, you can have an intention. How many people rush through meals, right? Especially if we have health goals and then we get a meal and now we rush through it and it was mindless. We just got on the train. We just got back on the train that feels normal to us instead of setting an intention for what that meal time is going to look like and making the best of that situation based on what our goals are, right? Then before, post-work commute, how many of you drive home from work or take a train home from work or have time, right? What do we want that to look like? Pre-evening wind down, right? That was a big one for me that I never set an intention on, and I just left it all up to chance, right? And then when I started getting really clear on how I wanted that kind of like after dinner, before nighttime period to look in my house and feel, that was a big one. Interactions with people we love. Like, I'm going to see this person for the first time today. How do I want that to go? And then our bedtime routine. That one's big for Dee. She likes to watch, what's his name? Gutfeld. It's part of it. But that bedtime routine is a chance for us to get on the train, right? So for every segment that you have, I want you guys to pick 3 segments. And I want you to ask yourself, how do I want to feel in this segment? Energized, peaceful, focused. You pick the word. Go look at the values. Go look at the values. You'll find your words. What kind of experience do I want to create? Do I want it to be easy? Do I want it to flow? Do I want to feel connected? Do I want to feel joy? Do I want to feel hopeful? Do I want to feel happy? How do we want to feel? I'll throw a feelings wheel in your thing too. I have something called the feelings wheel. My brother, I told you guys, my brother came around after many years of looking at me doing this work and not liking it or not enjoying being in my company because the magnetism wasn't there, right? Like he was a complete opposite attraction of what I was putting out. And so he was repelled by me. But he came around and he learned about the feelings wheel, and he wrote me a text one day and he's like, have you ever seen this feelings? And I'm like, yes, Bob, I've seen the feelings wheel. You have a feelings wheel in your workbooks. It's next to the emotional ladder. So it's very early on in your workbooks. It's something called the feelings wheel. So if you want to look at what kind of experience I want to have, you might want to look at the feelings wheel. And then I want you to write a statement that attaches a why or a value to that segment, right? So here's an example. Let's say the segment is waking up. I used to wake up every single day of my life anxious about what my financial future was going to look like. There was a 3-year period. This was before I decided to sell my house. It was just this overwhelming feeling of dread that I didn't know what my future held, right? And I hated it. So I had to start making sure that when I woke up, the first thing I thought about was my intention. And it completely flipped it. First, I had to use gratitude because I couldn't get to this intention. So I had to go with 3 things I was grateful for, and I was able to kind of take a deep breath. But I woke up with it. Like I literally woke up with it as a pit in my stomach, right? So intention for waking up. I intend to start my morning with gratitude and ease, welcoming a beautiful day ahead because. And then I have to align some sort of why or value statement for it, right? So what's an example of that? I intend to wake up with gratitude and set a peaceful, productive tone for my day because I want to start my day grounded rather than rushing into it with stress, right? I'm just going to align some sort of value to it. I intend, maybe before a meeting at work, I intend to communicate with confidence, clarity, and presence. Why? My value is integrity, because showing up fully is a commitment that I make to myself and others at work, right? Maybe at dinner time, I intend to slow down, savor this meal, and connect with the people around me. The value I can pull out maybe is love, because nourishing myself and being present with my family is part of the life I'm trying to create. For D, you could throw grace in there, right? Because I want to show myself that I have grace for myself. right? And I'm going to enjoy eating a healthy meal every time I sit down. That's how I'm going to have grace, right? And if I can make it, semi-homemade, fantastic. And if I can make it healthy but bought out, fantastic. That's how I'm giving myself the grace that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Is this making sense to you guys? So let's do one together. So pick one transition time that you can think of that really might be causing you a time to get on the wrong train, right? Because each of these segments is leading to the next piece of our day. So where is the most impactful time that you can pick where you know that you go into it and you often go below the line? Pick one of those. Ask yourself how you want to feel in that segment and what kind of experience you want to create. And then because Lisa's smiling. I don't know if you have it in your head already. Or if Maddie's making you laugh. I don't know what's going on.
No, I was just visualizing it in my head. And it was,
All right. You knew which one it was going to be.
oh yeah.
So every time we set an intention for a segment, you're really choosing the train you want to be on, right? Like you're aligning your energy with your feel good life, not just in those big moments of those worthy dreams, but in these tiny, tiny ones throughout the day. And if we string enough of these together, you're going to create that life. As soon as you have one, let me know and come off mute and share it. All right, Lisa, go.
Mine is, waking up Madeline,
Okay.
and whether or not she gets up easily or with question for some reason lately on her own. And she has never given me a really hard time with like picking out her outfits and stuff in the morning. Now she's 8, she'll be 9 in June. So she's just starting with more of an opinion. But for some reason lately, she's decided to pick out her outfits the night before. And when that happens, I get a more blissful transition in the morning. And that's it. It's waking her up and getting her go. Once I get her going, the morning can go fine. It's getting her going, that transition.
So I intend to have a peaceful morning with Maddie.
Now, do I have to start that the night before by suggesting to her if she hasn't on her own?
Yeah.
picked
So
out
you
the
just
outfit?
figured it out, right?
Yeah.
Like if I intend to have a peaceful morning with Maddie, I already figured out something I can do. I intend to have a peaceful morning with Maddie by having a conversation at night before bed about what
Her outfit.
her choices are for clothing.
Yeah.
Because
It creates bliss.
it creates bliss for her and me.
Yeah.
And when I have that to start off my day,
I'm less stressed and filled with more joy.
and filled with more joy. Like you could just feel it. You're like
Yeah.
smiling. You're like, it's so great on those mornings.
It is.
It's
Today was not one of them.
See, and that's why it's so clear to you.
Yeah.
Right. And this is creating a life on purpose. This is being purposeful. When I say I live a purposeful life, the more of these moments that you can do on purpose, the more you're not leaving the chance. Does this take a lot of effort for you?
No.
Does it take more effort for you in the morning if you don't do a tiny bit of effort of bringing up the clothing at night?
Yes.
Is there anything that you can do to remind yourself to do it at night?
I just have to set a timer, maybe set a reminder.
And we're going to get to habits in 2 lessons. And we're going to get to how to take these things and create habits out of them. Because you might need a timer in the beginning, and then you might not ever need it again, because the reward is so big that you will be pushed to start doing it on a daily basis. Awesome. Who else has a segment? Do I have to go around? Teresa's unmuting. I love you.
My meal times, all meal times, whenever I eat, I shove. I don't eat to fuel my body. I eat to shove my emotions and stress and feelings.
Okay.
So I need to
Did you
be a
get a
little bit more.
sentence about it, or do we have to work on it together?
I intend to be thankful to have nourishing food to fuel my body.
Because
Because when I just shove food down my throat, I get agita.
that's the contrast. Let's go to clarity. Because I love feeling healthy and energized by what I eat.
Okay.
That would be the opposite of full of agita and so does that feel good to you? I intend to be
Yes.
thankful to have nourishing food to fuel my body pick a meal because we're just doing one at lunch.
Lunch works. As soon as I get
At
home from work,
lunch.
dinner, before
Then
bed.
we'll work on dinner after that. We're just doing
Yeah.
we're just doing one right now. Let's start
The
with
only
baby
thing I
steps.
don't eat is breakfast, so it's every time after that.
Okay. We're working on lunch.
The little sensors in your wrist, your elbow, your
Oh,
shoulder.
Marla, you got something on in the background? I think we're hearing you. Do you have one, Marla? We'll go to you.
Well, if I'm honest, my morning routine is probably, if we're talking about something that typically drives me bananas, yeah. My morning routine. Because
All right.
yeah.
So how does that spiral the whole day if your morning routine is frazzled?
No, I wouldn't say it spirals the whole day, but I'm better when it's in play and I'm not when it isn't. That's true.
Okay.
So,
all right. So I intend to start my morning. How?
I'm probably going to start from the night before, set an intention for the morning.
I intend to end my nights with an intention for my morning.
It's the one practice I've never put in play, like putting together a list. And we used to talk about it, right? A to-do list for the next day so that there's structure and there's a little bit of order and it's not haphazard. And I think setting an intention, I intend to set an intention for the morning and
so that I have structure and can feel what?
accomplished.
Because why is that important to you?
It's the words that came because I deserve it.
Deserve
Because I
it.
deserve
Hell
it.
yeah.
Because it's because I do deserve it. It's the way I like to spend my morning. And I'm just getting off track with nonsense.
It's the way I like it.
The way I like it.
Awesome. One more. Who's got one? Heather.
I can
I
do
love
one.
when my S's show up.
So I don't know if morning is really the worst time for me right now, but I think that's a good way to start the day, right? So I would
Okay.
have an intention to have a peaceful, calm, but energized and optimistic day. And why? Just so that I am in a better place to show up for my family that way, and then also hopefully to deal with other things that are going on, to have a clear mindset.
It's a clear mindset going forward. I intend to have a peaceful, calm, and energized optimistic morning so that I'm in a better place to show up for my family because it gives me a clear mindset going forward. Really does. It sets the momentum of the entire day, right? And again, sometimes people wake up and they have awesome morning routines, right? And it's not the morning, it's the transition from work to home. Or it's like Teresa said, it's mealtime. There's no rhyme or reason. And this is not part of my feel good life. In my feel good life, we sit down and we eat a meal. In my feel good life, no one argues while we're eating, right? There's so much research that says if your stress levels elevate while you're eating, while you're actually eating, you can't properly digest your food, right? And it's one of the big causes of weight gain in women that's related to stress, but that they don't realize is related to stress. It's actually the lack of being able to digest the food because you're aggravated. When you're aggravated, when you go below the line in your emotions, all of your systems shut down. It's fight or flight, right? So you're not, and your digestive system fuels all your other systems, right? So it became an intention of mine that there was no aggravating conversation during mealtime at dinner. And then I had to set boundaries around that, right? And then I had to enforce boundaries around that. So there was a little aggravation while it was going on, but then eventually that becomes the norm, and it sets the stage for what is the expectation for mealtime. Mealtime is about gathering, and we're not going to argue about things. We're not going to bring up topics that could possibly aggravate people, right? And we're going to be intentional about that. So when you start to do this all throughout times of your day, you start to notice the pockets of your day that bring you most below the line, that create the most resistance in these big dreams that we have, right? We're going to start to just peel it down into the tiny, big things. So again, I want you guys to pick 3 segments that you're going to look at over the next 3 days and really come to the group and talk about them and see how it feels. Or when we come back next Monday, let's share kind of how that looked like, to just pay attention to these different transition times, or pick 1 and do it for 3 days. But if you could pick 3, you're going to really start to kind of notice it. It's just about consciously choosing how we show up. It's about setting the tiny intentions along with the big intentions. So we're going to wrap up on that. Next lesson is going to be, like I said, about gifts and about your God-given gifts and about your purpose and how it relates to these worthy dreams and to our feel-good life. And then we're going to move into habits and really creating a habit structure. And we're going to move into breaking down each one of these things into these tiny little actionable steps that we have to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis in order to make them come true. So we are building with this values piece and these feel good segments. This is really a big part of it. So we're going to keep coming back to this. You could see how we started working on this stuff all the way back when we started talking about our values being our guides, right? But now you can really see how your values can guide every single action we do and every dream that we have. And this is how we do it. Tiny bit by tiny bit by tiny bit, attracting all the things that match our energy. This is about keeping our energy high. So I'll post this slide with this homework activity on there. I'll post the feelings wheel, and I look forward to talking to you guys throughout the week and hearing about this in our one-on-ones. And you guys are doing awesome. I love every one of you and how much you're showing up for yourselves, and the fact that you're still here. Like, you're keeping my percentages high. When I go out to market this to the next round, what are the statistics? 30% of you will finish. That's it. And right now we're at 75. It's pretty good. And we're close near to the end. So I like those odds. You're all doing it. Thank you for showing up and continue to showing up for yourselves, guys. Mwah. Go out into the world and create those worthy dreams. Bye.